So staying in Ohio, because Trump, he is ending the Haitians temporary protection status next month in January.
He should. They have given themselves a bad name. The Clintons hooked up with it, and they are really horrible. I had some beautiful lady that I had mentored years ago, my deceased brother, Cliff Stewart, and I had to set up a rescue for her because after that earthquake in Haiti, she was exposing that a Catholic convent with mostly black nuns was taking orphaned young black women or girls and selling them into slavery for Jesus. That's just absolutely absurd. So they were trying to kidnap this woman, and we had to give her a rescue. One of those things you see in the movies.
Right. Oh, well,
See, that's what's going on back there. Barbecue.
right.
You know who barbecue is?
Over in Haiti.
Yeah.
Yeah, but see, but my thing is this though, because the same way we allow the Somalis to come here and become citizens because we had something to do with that war over there in Somalia and once upon a time, they should allow those Haitians to become citizens the same way the Somalians instead of just giving them temporary status because the United States in the last few decades had a lot to do, especially under the Clinton administration, had a lot to do with the corruption and breakdown of the Haitian government.
Also, the Wilson administration back in World War One did not, Democratic Party administration of Woodrow Wilson did not like the bad example Haitians set for American blacks because Toussaint Louverture had gotten them free and had a successful revolution against France. World War One, we were close allies with France, and they did not like us supporting Haiti, and it was a bad example for the American Negro. So they selected Marines from Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Georgia, North, South Carolina, etc., and sent them over there to Haiti, where they could be very nasty to the black Haitians. That set the stage for that sicko Papa Doc Duvalier, and then his son Baby Doc. And then by then, Haiti had gone to hell. And also, one of the things that has caused a reluctance to deal with what you're talking about, that they try to keep quiet, is because of the huge influx of those infected with HIV/AIDS because of the traffic between San Francisco and Haiti that was occurring, that was felt to be spreading the HIV/AIDS epidemic of the late 80s and early and mid 90s.
Well, I want to play this clip here.
In about a month, the government's going to change the status of Haitians working there in that community from legal to illegal. That's about 10,000 workers gone. I asked if the governor has appealed to the White House. He tells me he's talked to everyone who will listen.
These people who are currently legal, who came here legally, their status will change and they'll no longer be legal. When that happens, all those employers will no longer be able to employ them. And so that one day, all of them are going to be unemployed. And these companies are going to start scrambling and trying to figure out how are we going to make our production.
They're eating the dog.
This issue, you'll recall, was a big one during the presidential election. I'll have more from the governor on things like why he has yet to endorse Republican Vivek Ramaswamy for governor, and if he thinks that Democrat Amy Acton, his former employee, would make a good governor.
All right.
See, here's the thing. The policy says we're going to make you hire Americans. And if you don't like the quality of the workforce, we're going to compel you to do something about that and train them and condition them to be good employees. Mm-hmm. I just had a bad complaint from somebody who was a manager, overall area manager for several McDonald's franchises. And he astonished me. He said, it's true that we don't do what you think. We actually have pictures of the product on the keys because we can't even count on some of our employees being educated. well enough to even read the prices on the menu and put them into the cash register. So all they do is put to the keys. Now he says he's having a problem with employees who cannot identify the product with the pictures on the keys.
Mhm.
And it's gotten that bad. So I said, well, you're going to have to train them. He said, obviously, he said, but they won't allocate any amount of time reasonably necessary to make up for these personal deficits. They aren't educated. They don't have a sufficient grounding in math to do simple arithmetic, adding and subtracting. They can't count change. That's almost an impossibility. And they are on their cell phones, gossiping half the time and loud and disturbing the customers. So what are we supposed to do? I said, well, it's your job as the manager to take care of that. Use the initiative. Just say we're going to have to reduce our services while we train some of these people for a few weeks. And that's essentially what you're getting. And another thing, too, they're going to have to watch South Korea. Blue Oval, that people think is with Ford Motor Company, which it is affiliated with, but it is a South Korean corporation. It defrauded St. Louis allegedly of $178 million a few years ago. And now it's in the Memphis area. And we are set to spend several $billions developing that so the local Democrats can have money under the table by changing a 5,280 population of a Mason, Tennessee, to 250,000 inside of 5 to 10 years to accommodate this place. They're hiring 30,000 people, is supposed to start production inside of 2.5 years. The company is boasting that it's already hired 15,000, but they have to be brought here, and they're running into problems now because they're South Korean citizens, not even possessed of an American green card. So what is this? You're bringing in a factory that will have 30,000 employees and nobody that lives in this country is supposed to get a job. And ICE just had a big raid on one of the Korean automotive manufacturers down here south of our border. What's going on? South of Tennessee's border.
Mhm.
So, see, this isn't the only thing that has happened around the country. It's widespread. Now, granted, there are
Well,
some problems. I'll give you one thing that they do need to change in the American workforce. When I had a ranch out in Ojai, California, I could always tell when a contractor was hiring illegals. You know how? They showed up to work early or on time. They took small breaks or none at all, and they politely asked if they could bring some cervezas to have with a couple of limes out of my citrus trees so they could have a happy hour on the spot, and they'd keep working until they got through with it. Meanwhile, anybody else, don't care what your ethnicity is, you're from the US, you get there late, you take long breaks, overextend your lunch, and you don't do your job.
Can you hear me? I just want to make sure you can hear me. But I wanted to say this because to your point, what you just said, so we're talking about 10,000 to 16,000 TPS Haitians here in Ohio, and it's February the 3rd. That's the expiration. So the governor is saying, when you talk to business, and these are business owners, because at the end of the day, as a business person, it's about bottom line. You want to make a profit, right? So he says, when you talk to businessmen and women who are employing them, what they tell me has not changed. It continues to be, we need them to work. They are reliable. Yes, there are language challenges. Yes, there are cultural challenges. They work, they want overtime, they're reliable, and they pass drug tests. And when I read that drug test, that is, can you see me and hear me? Okay. That is a major factor on why a lot of young people and older adults, Americans, black and white, are not working because they can't pass a drug test. Coming from Newark, New Jersey, with the mayor Ross Baraka, when he was elected for the first time, it's a lot of programs that he helped usher in, employment, for people to work, whether it's entry level, mid level, or whatever, can't pass drug tests. If you can't pass a drug test as a business person, you're not going to get hired. Why would I hire a drug addict? So, and we do have a drug epidemic here in this country, fentanyl or what have you. So now you have these migrants that come in here. They're not drug addicts. They're not taking drugs. They're going to show up. They're going to work. They're going to work their ass off. They know they're not getting paid probably what an American person is getting paid, but they are hard workers, they're valuable, and they could pass the drug test. And at the end of the day, business person, I got to make a profit.
Well, see here, when I was on the bench starting 4 decades ago, I could set up programs. But one of the things I had to do was literally get psychological counseling for some of the offenders that were minor offenders and weren't required to be in jail too long or at all under the sentencing guidelines, was to get them away from feeling like they were victims and understanding that they had opportunity. See, foreign people come in here without this sense of victimhood. They have escaped what they did have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, which was real adversity, where somebody might put them on a wall and shoot them or gun them down in the streets for political purposes, or they get exploited and treated like peasants. So they get here, they think of the place as opportunity, which is a psychological state of mind, a state of mind that is not possessed by too many people who grew up here, who have a sense of hopelessness, thinking they're going to die pointlessly at a very early age and don't see any reason to even try. Well, these people have motivation and they come here and they have something that, if our indigenous population understood, would benefit them greatly. In other words, you don't get a damn thing unless you work hard for it. You've got to stay up late at night. You can't get this magic 8 hours of sleep every night because you read in some comic book situation on social media that says you have to get 8 hours sleep. So you get that and you don't work, where I'm entitled to it. So I don't have to study. I don't have to read up on what I'm doing. I don't have to get good grades. Somebody will take care of me type situation. These people say, well, we're here now. Look at this great opportunity. So many of these folk that look like us, they think that they need to be taken entitled. They're entitled to be taken care of. The people that run stuff think they're supposed to take care of them. So let's pretend that we're one of them and let them take care of us, but we're not getting taken care of. We're hustling these fools. We're working them. So it's an interesting game.
So going back to Ohio, Dewan, with the Trump ending the TPS for Haitians on February 3rd, that's 10 to 16,000, let's say 10,000 job positionings that's going to be available. Okay. Well, who's going to fill it? Fill up those positions. You got to pass a drug test. So let's say that knocks out half of the 10, right? Probably can only fill up 5 because the other half, they're going to fail a drug test. Now, are they reliable? Are they hard workers? Are they willing to accept minimum wage? I'm pretty sure these are not high salary job positions. So,
man, I got too much pride to be flipping no burgers for Mickey D's and minimum wage, man. My women's take care of me, man. I ain't got to do none of that, man.
So I'm curious. So with these 10,000 positions that's going to be opening February the 3rd, if they are able to fill up those positions, will the employment rate go up, right, in the state of Ohio? And if that's the case, then maybe bringing in immigrants and letting them work and putting them over Americans is a bad thing. So I'm curious to see the outcome of this.
Well, first off, let's get to reality. How many millions of people do you have in Ohio?
I don't know.
Quite a few. divide 15,000 by the number of millions of people you have in Ohio, and you see it's not a very large percentage.
We're talking about,
How
a
many people?
city of particularly Springfield, Ohio.
Yeah, but it's not 15,000 in Springfield. The total that they cite is 15,000. So how many does 15, what percentage of Ohio does 15,000 constitute? It's not big. So what they're doing is, see, this is another thing with mainstream media. Why didn't they just tell us 15,000 is is a very small number of people when it comes to the employment market? It is significant because rather than just saying 15,000, and man, 15,000 people, man, they get, see, but right here in Memphis, we have 15,000 people that are unemployed that ought to be employed. So if we hired 15,000, it would put a small dent in the employment situation. Blue Oval, the Korean company, has hired 15,000 of their people to work in the factory. That's half of the workforce that they will have in their factory. But it is by no way, no how, a significant portion of what's in West Tennessee, which is a few million people who have needs. So
I get what you're saying.
in other words, it's making a big deal because the number sounds big to people, but it's not.
It's but as a state, if you're a governor of a state, you 15,000 unemployed overnight. Well, by February 13th. And I guess, you know what? Listen, I'm a regular civilian. So yes, that sounds like a lot. But
that happened overnight during COVID-19.
20. Oh, COVID-19. Yes, in 2020. Yes.
Yeah. See, so I mean, it's all relative. It happens when we have a recession. Boom, you get a lot more than that laid off, no job very quickly,
And
who run through their
we're
unemployment
talking about,
compensation.
okay, just replace them with citizens, basically. It's not.
Yeah, in other words, see, what happens is you need government follow up. You don't get a job when you're able bodied and have no disabilities. You don't get this check but so long. Just like, look at this. The honest one is unemployment insurance, but there's a cutoff on how long you can be paid unemployment insurance, right? So why don't they have that for general public assistance when it's not based on disability or handicap? It's based on your immediate situation where you need a safety net to keep you from falling through the cracks like so many did during the Great Depression. So why do they keep these checks available in perpetuity instead of saying, like, for those who generated through their own work monies that were paid into unemployment compensation funds, why don't you set a limit on the amount of time that somebody can collect a check? And either they go back to work or they go and get a further education in some vocational or academic field. So why don't you have that? Why don't you have what they had when they set this stuff up back in the 1930s? WPA, Works Progress Administration. When there are bridges, there are fire breaks, there's trash to be picked up, all kinds of things where you can pay these people that you're going to give a government check to do that are not done. Why don't you make that a requirement and says, oh, they're unfortunate, we have to pay them, they have a bad mood, so we have to understand they've been vilified by being victims. And no. See, when you have this program and you say, we'll get rid of the people that are in this country who are undesirable right now, who have not become citizens, to force you to hire American citizens, to force you to train up those American citizens, to collaterally cause you to render coercion or influence to get the school system to acting like it is possessed of sense and will educate the children to be able to function in their world instead of helpless little victims. There's all kinds of fallout to this that is encouraged by saying, you know, this system is really constipated and it needs an enema and it needs a laxative.